Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I will paraphrase Act 5 Scene 1 of Merchant of Venice. So let's get started. The last act concludes the play in an atmosphere of peace and joy. So in the previous scene, Antonio was done justice, he was saved from the evil clutches of Shylock, and now they were heading towards Belmont. Happy things happened. In this scene, we return to Belmont to witness the restoration of harmony and romance. Now, in this particular scene, Act 5, Scene 1, everything, all the loose strings are going to get interconnected, interweaved. Romantic comedy written by Shakespeare always end on a happy note. So, therefore, all the lovers are going to meet, they will get each other's company. Then all the people who were suffering are eventually going to get some good news. This is how the comedies of Shakespeare end. The impassioned dialogues of Lorenzo and Jessica. Impassioned means full of love kind of dialogues of Lorenzo and Jessica, the two lovers, create an atmosphere of love and music. So in the very beginning, we see there is a confabulation, there is a conversation between the two where they are exchanging their feelings of love. Bassanio and Greciano arrive after their wives and the ring episode reaches its climax. So these are some small points given what all is going to happen. They are accused of losing their ring. So the ring episode is finally going to reach its zenith. And their inability to defend themselves is a surefire comedy. It definitely creates humor. After enough of teasing, Portia gives a succession of revelations. So she reveals what all happened, how all things went on. The identity of the lawyer and his clerk, Antonio's good fortune and the inheritance of Lorenzo and Jessica. So she just brings out the secrets from her bag and she tells everybody what exactly is going to happen with them. As such, all the loose ends are tied up and the end is happy, aided by love, loyalty and a good sense of humor. So there is theme of loyalty and love. I'll begin with the text now. Scene 1, the setting of the scene is very important. It comes in subjective paper. It is set in Belmont. Avenue to Portia's house. Avenue means route to Portia's house, on the way to Portia's house. Enter Lorenzo and Jessica. So Lorenzo and Jessica are there. Lorenzo says, the moon shines bright. He says the moon is shining brightly. In such a night as this. Now he says it was such a night like this night when they are talking. When the sweet wind did gently kiss the trees. That the sweet wind that was blowing, it passed through the trees and it seemed as if it was gently touching or kissing the trees. And they did make no noise. And the trees made no noise when the wind used to surpass them or pass through them. In such a night, now the first allusion is mentioned of Troilus. Point number 4 is very important. Now Troilus was the son of a king of Troy and Cressida were lovers. So they both were lovers and had exchanged vows of eternal fidelity. Means they vowed that they will always remain faithful to each other. However, during the siege of Troy, during the war of Troy, Cressida was handed over to the Greeks in an exchange of prisoners. So she was given to the Greeks so that the prisoners should be brought back. She had vowed to remain constant. Means she vowed that she will always remain faithful to Troilus, but soon fell in love with Diomed. So she fell in love with Diomed. They can ask you, whom did Cressida fall in love with? Diomed. Okay. For a long time, every night Troilus stood on the walls of Troy looking at Greek camp. Thus, Cressida became a symbol of unfaithful lovers. Now, you can be asked, what was the first reference made in Act 5, Scene 1? Like the first references of Troilus and Cressida. They can ask you the sequence of the, allusions mentioned after Troilus who was mentioned, before Medea who was mentioned. So you need to remember the sequence for MCQs. Apart from this, you should know the nationalities like who was Greek, who was Roman, all this should be known to you. Now, Lorenzo makes a reference. He says, Troilus methinks. He says, it was such a night that I think Troilus mounted the Trojan walls. He climbed the Trojan walls, the Trojan walls or the boundary walls of Troy, and sighed his soul toward the Grecian prince. And sighed his soul means he sent sighs of love. He used to take deep sighs of unhappiness because his lover had not been faithful to him. He took those deep sighs and breathed them toward the Grecian tents, to the direction in which the Greek tents were set. Where Crusade lay that night, where Crusade was sleeping that night. Now in this there is theme of love. This confabulation between the two lovers, that is Lorenzo and Jessica, is going to heighten the their feelings of love for each other. They are going to make different references of lovers who have been faithful, who have been unfaithful. Troilus always longed for his lover Crusade. As it was a romantic night, Lorenzo also makes the reference of Troilus for a reason, that it was romantic night and he also wanted Jessica just like Troilus wanted Crusade. So this is the relevance why this dialogue is mentioned. In response to this, Jessica says, in such a night, it was such a night. So this is a, we can say, refrain which keeps on repeating for 7 times in this verbal argument that they have. Did Thisbe fearfully overtrip the dew? Now Thisbe, a Babylonian maiden. So she was from Babylon. You should know this for MCQs. She and her lover Pyramus. So her lover was Pyramus, were forbidden to meet by their parents. So they were not allowed to meet. One day they arranged to meet in a forest. So they decided to meet at the tomb of Ninus, Ninus, in the forest. Thisbe saw a lion and fled, leaving her cloak behind. Means when she came there at the meeting point, she saw a lion, the reflection of a lion, and she ran away leaving her cloak, means her mantle or her piece of clothing there. Pyramus saw her blood-stained cloak, thought Thisbe was dead and killed himself. So when her lover came there, that was Pyramus, he thought that maybe she was killed by the lion. Now how the stains had come on the cloak? Because eventually the lion might have come, he might have played on with that piece of cloth, because of which there were stains on the cloak, and he thought she was killed, so he killed his own self. He committed suicide. Later when this thief came again to that place, she saw that her lover was lying dead, therefore she killed her own self. So this was an example of faithful lovers. So Jessica, heightening the theme of love, she mentioned the example of faithful lovers to contrast with the example of unfaithful lovers, that is Troilus and Cressida, that was given by Lorenzo. Did Thisbe fearfully overtrip the dew? So she, in that feeling of fearfulness, walked over the grass which was covered with dew and saw the lion's shadow there, and she saw the shadow of a lion before seeing the lion himself over there, and ran dismayed away, and she ran away from there in dismay, in fear, okay, without meeting her lover. Lorenzo is, in such a night stood Dido with a willow in her hand. Now he again makes a reference to Dido, who was deserted by her lover. When Lorenzo is making a reference to a deserted lover, a girl who was deserted, he's trying to taunt his girlfriend, or he's trying to taunt his would-be wife that anything can happen in love. Now he says, in such a night stood Dido with a willow in her hand. He said it was such a night. Again a refrain is used. When Dido, queen of island of Carthage, stood with a willow in her hands. Now this point, the love story of Aeneas and Dido. So lover of Dido was Aeneas, and Dido is narrated by Virgil in Aeneid. Now this, they can ask you, where is this love story narrated? By Virgil in Aeneid. Aeneas was the Trojan warrior who founded the city of Rome. During his voyages, he reached Carthage. So when he was on a sea voyage, he reached this island of Carthage, where he loved Queen Dido. After a long stay with her, he sailed away, leaving Dido heartbroken. So he deserted her, he went away from there. She killed herself out of grief, means out of anger or out of sadness that she was deserted. Shakespeare says that it must have been on a beautiful night that Dido walked sadly on the seashore, holding in her hand a willow. So she was holding a willow. Willow is a kind of shrub, it is a kind of leaf, I would say. The symbol of deserted love. So, willow, what is it symbolic of? It is symbolic of deserted love. Remember that for MCQs. She beckoned to Aeneas. She waved at Aeneas to come back to Carthage. She asks him to come back to her, but he did not. So Lorenzo is making a reference to taunt Jessica at the fate of Dido, that what happens to a lover like Dido. In such a night stood Dido with a willow in her hand. She was standing with the willow in her hand upon the wild sea banks, upon the desolate seashores, and wafted her lover, and she waved towards her lover to again come to Carthage, so that he returns back to the island of Carthage and they can live happily. In response to this, Jessica says now, in such a night, Medea gathered the enchanted herbs. She again mentions the faithful lovers. Medea gathered the enchanted herbs. Medea, she collected the magical herbs that did renew old Aeneas. Now she collected these magical herbs because Elizabethans believed that certain herbs had some magical properties if they were collected at the night time. So she made a potion or a soup kind of it, and she gave it to her old father-in-law Aeson. Jason, a famous Greek hero, led an expedition to Colchis in search of golden ram's fleece. So in your books, in this text, Merchant of Venice, this Jason's reference has come before as well, where we were told that he went to take the fleece from the golden ram's fleece from a oak tree that was tied around the oak tree. Medea, his wife, helped him to win the golden fleece. Besides, she gathered herbs of magical properties by night and administered them to her aged father-in-law Aeson, name of the father-in-law you should remember, to restore his youth. Elizabethans believed that certain herbs had magical properties if gathered by night. So, a reference of faithful and cooperative wife is given by Jessica. Now, Lorenzo in response to this says, in such a night did Jessica steal from the wealthy Jew. Now, he makes reference to Jessica, that it was such a night when Jessica eloped with Lorenzo and stole some things from her father's house, some wealthy things from her father's house, who was a Jew. And within an unthrift love. With an unthrift love means a lover who was not good for anything at that point in time, because he didn't earn much, he didn't have much property or merchandise or anything, no assets at all, did run from Venice as far as Belmont. So she ran with her lover from Venice to Belmont. Jessica says, in such a night, it was such a night, did young Lorenzo swear he loved her well. So Jessica says it was such a night when this young Lorenzo, lover like Lorenzo, swore that he loved his beloved, that is Jessica, very well, very truthfully, stealing her soul, and with these vows he stole or captivated her heart with many vows of faith, and he made many vows, many promises of always being constant in love towards her, and never a true one. And she takes a dig, and he never made a truthful promise. He never kept a promise of being faithful. Lorenzo says, in such a night, it was such a night. Now this is just to heighten the love between both of them, also to show that how constant they were towards each other. In such a night did pretty Jessica, like a little shrew. He says it was such a night when beautiful Jessica, like a little shrew means like a ill-tempered woman, slander her love. She defamed her love, and he forgave it her, and he forgave her for doing so. Jessica, I would outnight you. She says, I would continue to surpass you did nobody come, if nobody comes and interrupts us. But hark, hark is an expression of listen. Hark means listen, you should know this. I hear the footing of a man. I hear the footsteps of somebody coming towards us. And then the messenger comes and he tells that Bassanio along with Antonio is going to reach by the next morning. I hope all your doubts are sorted. Do not forget to like, share and subscribe.